From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell and I'm in Adelaide, which is where I'll be spending Christmas this year with all of my mum's side of the family. We'll start the day probably with a bit of a walk along the beach, a bit of a swim if it's nice and calm and it's meant to be warming up for Christmas Day as well. And then a hot lunch, believe it or not, roast turkey with all the trimmings, traditional Christmas pudding that my aunt makes, you know, hanging it in the bag and everything, in the cloth. And then I will definitely be in charge of the brandy sauce. I do enjoy that responsibility. And then I'll be leaving around about mid-afternoon to catch a plane for that other great Christmas tradition, the Boxing Day test.
Yes, Ali, you're going to be busy. As you can see, Christmas has been sorted in our place, the Jen and Jim and Rusty home. And underneath our Christmas tree, as usual, there are presents from all sorts of people to Jennifer. Roger Federer, the Clintons. You never know whose name will appear on a present under the tree. Maybe even one from me and from Rusty. But our annual ritual takes us to the outlaws, the in-laws, whichever way you want to describe them. And then I get up at 5 in the morning or something and jump on a plane and go down to Melbourne. And it's been going on for a long while. So far, I've been very lucky. The plane has never been late. But having said that, I probably just put the kiss on, like talking about a bloke on 99 who's guaranteed to get 100.
Well, the Boxing Day test and presents from the greats. What can I say? I can't match that. Hello, everybody. This is Charu, Sharma. I'm in Jaipur these days, the capital city of the beautiful state of Rajasthan. And I will very soon be going to Ajmer, which is where our school is, the Mayo College of Ajmer, to spend Christmas. Not quite traditional Christmas, but great fun anyway. Our return to school is called, quite aptly, Deja Vu, just so we can experience our boarding school days again. And to those who are following what was going on, I've just returned from Dehradun, where we played our alumni cricket, since the term these days is pretty fashionable. It's called the Alumni Cricket Bash. So we finished runner-up. But I'm still alive to tell the tales.
That's what it says on the tin then, by the sounds of it. Jim, I'll make sure they hold off from first ball until you get to the ground. I'm sure I can swing that on day one. Let's hope your plane is on time, and I'll see you with Boxing Day at the MCG. Well, we're going to start this week's show by talking about the biggest T20 league in Australia, the Men's Big Bash League, which is now in full swing. So it's played between December and February. But a slice of maybe unwanted history was created last week when Sydney Thunder were bowled out for 15, yes, just 15 in only 5 overs and 5 balls. It was the lowest team total in men's T20 history anywhere. Well, the team who inflicted that on the Thunder were Adelaide Strikers, who have won all 3 of their matches so far. And their head coach is former Australia fast bowler Jason Dizzy Gillespie, who joins us on Stumped. Dizzy, great to have you on. Hope you're well. I mean, just on that match, could you quite believe what was unfolding in front of your eyes?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ali. No, couldn't. In short, it was one of those surreal, I suppose, times where you think in the game, you know, you pick up maybe 3 or 4 wickets, but you think there's got to be a partnership just around the corner here. And yeah, it's still in a little bit of disbelief, to be honest. You think, well, surely someone's going to get the 30 or 40 and get it up to a reasonable score and even win the game. But they just, for some reason, they were either hitting the middle of the bat or they nicked it. There was the Sydney Thunder players hardly played and missed at a ball. Yeah, as I said, they either hit the ball or they nicked it to the keeper or slips. It was really a bizarre, surreal night.
I mean, what do you even say to a team after you've just rolled them over for 15, you know, when you're handshaking at the end of the match, kind of, you know, well done, well tried?
Yeah, I think, you know, I remember seeing Trevor Bayliss, you know, he was just shaking his head going, Dizzy, we won't see the likes of that again. And I said, mate, I tend to agree with you. That is an absolute anomaly. And we ended up playing them subsequently a few days later, and they got off to a flyer and scored very quickly and scored a lot of runs in the power play. And they got a Bronx cheer from the Adelaide crowd when they got to 16, which was always going to happen. Crowds are pretty switched on these days, aren't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really just a an anomaly, a very unusual thing that a quirk that can happen in our wonderful sport.
Dizzy, Jim Maxwell here in Sydney. Just reflecting on the Big Bash and all these new leagues around the world. Do you still think the Big Bash has its relevance? It's still as lucrative as it once was, or it's perhaps losing its new ball shine?
I think it's very relevant on the calendar. And why I say that, Jim, is as a coach, and when you're trying to put a team together and a squad together, the amount of interest from overseas for players all around the world that want to play in the Big Bash League, it's extraordinary. All players want to be part of it and experience it. So the popularity is there. There's a lot of debate and discussion around the length of the tournament, and that those things will continue to happen. I think Cricket Australia, are starting to listen to a lot of people, a lot of stakeholders in the game are all probably singing from the same hymn sheet. Really, everyone's talking that probably needs to be condensed a little bit. I actually quite like the fact that you play each team home and away. I think that gives it some consistency. You get tested in all conditions against all teams, both home and away. So I don't mind that. I certainly think we can play more games in a shorter space of time. It's a 20-over game. While it is high intensity, we play 5-day cricket. We play 4-day cricket. We play 50-over cricket. I think T20 cricket can, there's no reason why. And I know in the UK with the T20 Blast, they play a finals day where they have 3 games, and one team invariably plays 2 games in a day. So I don't see why we can't play back-to-back days, or the occasional 2 games in one day. If condensing it is a potential solution to keep getting the best players available and playing more often than not, why not look at explore those opportunities?
Are you interested in going back to England and coach a team in the 100, maybe?
I certainly would have a conversation if that did come up. Be very open to exploring opportunities. I love coming to the UK. I really enjoyed my time living there and coaching. We had a little bit of success up north in Yorkshire. That was a lot of fun. And our daughter was born in Leeds, so we've always got Leeds is always a very special place for our family. My daughter keeps hounding me about when is she going to go home and back to England. Keep reminding her that she's Australian, but she can't get it. She can't understand that. She goes, "But Daddy, I was born in England."
Hi, Dizzy. This is Charu Sharma. Do you have what can be called a distinct coaching style, would you say? And in your coaching career, who do you think has had a really major influence, Dizzy?
Yeah, how I like to coach. I like to be very collaborative. I want players to know that because we have a coaching staff, so you don't just have the head coach and I know some coaches, it's how they want to operate. They ultimately are making the calls and do everything. I like to collaborate with my coaching staff. I like to collaborate with players, and because we're all on the journey together. And I think it's really important to, everyone has a voice, and ultimately, decisions have to be made. And sometimes you just have to make a decision. But I like to get as much information as I can to make the most informed decisions. And I suppose, styles, I've been very fortunate to have been coached and seen coaches firsthand. I really enjoyed John Buchanan when he coached Australia. One thing that really stood out for me, he knew that he had to try and challenge players in other ways. He couldn't teach Warne, for instance, how to bowl a leg spinner or how to bowl his flipper. But he could look to challenge all the players in other ways and get just food for thought. And I know there's been some potentially controversial things, Sun Tzu and sliding piece of paper under the door. But I think what everyone's got to remember is that it was always optional. Right? It was never you must read this or you must do this. It's here's some information. It's just something to get you thinking and maybe look at something from a different point of view. And I quite like the way John went about that. Others may disagree, but he always had a plan and a way moving forward, and I quite like that. As a young player, I had Jeff Bomber Hammond at South Australia, and I absolutely loved how he went about it. He was a fast bowlers captain, being a former fast bowler coach, I should say, being a former fast bowler himself, and I think maybe because I was a young player and he took me under his wing, he made me feel really welcome and in and around the team. I'm on another journey now. I've got Carl Hooper and Johan Botha as assistant coaches at the Adelaide Strikers. So getting to know those guys at the moment, and it's a new, fresh environment here at the Strikers with two new assistant coaches, and I'm learning a lot from them. We're all quite different, which I think is fantastic. We've all got slightly different ways of looking at the game, and we have some great debates on how we can help our players improve and get better.
A final thought, Dizzy, because looking ahead now to 2023, and there is an Ashes series to come. And of course, England are making great waves at the moment, just coming away from Pakistan 3-0 under the Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum new approach to Test cricket. What have you made of the way that they're going about things? And do you think that it'll mean that Australia are going to find it very tough in England next summer?
Look, I've been really enjoying the way England have been going out there. They've just been going out and just playing as if they're kids in the backyard with their mates, and that's what it looks like. The looks on their faces, they're all the biggest thing you notice is they've all got big grins on their face. They're smiling, they're having a laugh, they're loving each other's company, they're celebrating each other's successes. That's no accident. It's obviously the influence of Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes driving this team forward, is fantastic. And it's great for Test cricket. We're loving it. Australia, however, are going to be a different challenge in England with the Duke ball, especially with the Australian bowling attack. England can come out and play this way. That's great. But will they have the success that they had in Pakistan? Time will tell.
It was a pretty exciting summer watching them do it against New Zealand. That's all I'm going to say last year. Dizzy, a massive pleasure to have you on Stumped. Thanks so much for coming on, as always. Good luck for the rest of the season with Strikers.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate the chat.
Now, England's men have become the first visiting side to win 3 matches in a series in Pakistan. They won the third and final test of the series in Karachi by 8 wickets, which means they've now won 9 out of their last 10 matches. I mean, contrast that with 12 months ago when they're in the middle of an Ashes drubbing and the whole system of English cricket was being picked apart. Now, we've obviously spoken a lot on the show in recent times about Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum, but the standout player in Karachi was Rehan Ahmed. Now, he is the youngest man to play a test for England, and when he took 5 wickets for just 48 runs in the second innings, he became the youngest man to take a 5-wicket haul on test debut at just 18 years and 128 days. Jim, I mean, what a selection he's been for England. Impressed?
Very, very impressed with his maturity, his control. It was the most fantastic debut any 18-year-old, anyone could have. And he's clearly had a very good background. It was great to see the story around him as a 13 or 14-year-old with Shane Warne at the nets, basically anointing him and saying, "You'll be right, mate. You're going to make it, You'll be a good one." And my goodness, it's going to bring something to English cricket. They've already had the massive refreshment from leadership, and now the tonic of a very talented young wrist spin bowler. And they are a rarity, as Shane Warne has shown us. So I just think it's adding a dimension to English cricket that they haven't had for a long, long time. It's been years since they had a quality, genuine spin bowler. I'm not talking about the Derek Underwood type, but someone who can not only bowl accurately, but do something with the ball that just might surprise the batsman more than the old doorknobbers who bowl left arm or right arm finger spin. Very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Adil Rashid decided to step back from Test cricket, so it's been missing, hasn't it, for a long, long time, and he just seems like a huge talent. Charu, we saw Harry Brooks score his 3rd century of the series, which is quite something in itself. Again, someone so young in their Test career. Where does Johnny Bairstow fit in? Because, I mean, they will want him back in the side, but they've got matches to play, 2 tests against New Zealand end of February. What do England do?
This is a really tough one because Bairstow did nothing wrong. In fact, he's possibly the one who started this whole baseball thing because of his very aggressive, uber aggressive style. So on the face of it, I'm glad I'm not the selector here, but you've got to bring him back. And that might be very rough on young Harry, but, we know he has it and he's done it, well, regularly in the last few test matches. But I'm sure he too realizes that he's going to be back in the line, maybe first change in line, but Bairstow has to come back because he's done absolutely nothing wrong except get injured at the wrongest possible time. So that's my take on it. And it would be very rough if Bairstow at his age, after having proved all that he's proved, was to now be in line waiting for Brooks to fail, which might not happen in a hurry.
No, that's it. But what about for Pakistan? And they had, a disappointing series, but one of their greatest ever players, Azhar Ali, retired from international cricket at the end of that as well. And he finished with 7,142 test runs, the 5th most by a Pakistani cricketer, and the 1900s from his 97 matches across what was a 12-year test career. So, how much is he going to be missed by Pakistan? And, where does he sit for you as a player for them?
Well, he was certainly one of the stabilizing factors, not just with the bat, but also with his character and personality, because Pakistan could use that too. He's a very steady sort of person. So they'll miss him in many respects. But he's 37 now, so I suspect, he's seen the best of the battles over the years. Could he have played a little earlier? Maybe he could have. And to his dismay, of course, he started playing Test cricket for Pakistan when they were, unfortunately, they'd lost their hosting because of that 2009 incident, as you remember, as a start in 2010. So the bulk of his career to not have played in Pakistan must have been a real blow. But I'm so happy for him that he came back, started playing Test matches in Pakistan, and was, as you will remember, in 2019, I think it was, the first one to score a century in Pakistan. So I think a lot of people did realize his quality then. And apart from the runs you mentioned and the averages, I think he did hold at one point of time a rather quirky record of getting 100 with the white ball, a 200 with the red ball, and a 300 not out with the pink ball. So that was pretty rare. Of course, David Warne has gone on and scored many more with the pink ball. But a wonderful character. I think just the kind of person that Pakistan would love to have many more of. Not just a great batsman, but a very steady influence on the team, which they so desperately need as they carry on.
That's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped. So I'll say thank you to Jim Maxwell and to Charu Sharma and to all of you for listening. Have a very Merry Christmas and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
From the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.